It has been a remarkable year, and at last year's AGM, when the implementation plan for Plan Y was approved, Scott and I talked about what's the best way to see Plan Y in action, and we came to the conclusion that going out to the Ys in the country and seeing how Plan Y is sounding on the ground, how it's feeling for people, and how it's really working to build the Canada we want would be a great way to do that. So that's what we've been doing since last August. And as I said, it's been fantastic. Couldn't possibly share all the things that we have seen and all the places that we've been, but I wanted to give just a flavor, just a few examples. And then I also have just some slides that are going to come up that will augment. So we really didn't travel this way the whole time, but so some of the things that we saw, quelques choses que nous avons vues dans nos voyages. We saw programs for young immigrants that gave them a sense of connection to their community. We met a young volunteer that was giving his time to the Y. He was only 10 years old, and when Scott asked him why did he volunteer for the Y, he said, because there's no judgment and no drama. You know, what better thing could there be for a 10-year-old to feel about the Y? We saw Ys working on child protection to make us the safest place in the country for children's, teens, young adults, and vulnerable persons. We saw youth zones. There was a program we saw for street youth, a youth center that gives kids who don't feel that they belong in the community very well a place to go and hang out and to work on their artistic talents. We saw alternative to suspension programs that help kids that have maybe hit a rough patch stay in school. We saw youth leadership programs, including one called Striders with a Y, that helped kids reach their full potential. So when we talk about the things that we do for children, teens, and young adults and helping them reach their potential, all of those things were in there. We saw intergenerational childcares that brought people in personal care homes, elderly people and kids together so that they could share their stories and learn more about how to interact with generations. And then all sorts of other child cares that used YMCA Playing to Learn to bring the joy of play to children. We saw rolling registration for swimming lessons. And what we were told is that really sees the child as an individual, and it uses a continuous learning model, which is a perfect way for kids to learn to swim and develop other skills as well. We saw low-income housing that provides one of the very basics of healthy living. We saw a camp with straw cabins and another camp with a positive space philosophy that teaches campers about the importance of respect for everybody. Nous avons vu une école internationale de langue. This was a school that you could learn 13 different languages, and just connects us to the whole global world, reminds us that not everybody speaks only English or French. There's a lot of languages out there, and it also connects us to people outside Canada in some of the other 122 countries that have YMCAs. So a great connection. We saw a food bank in a Y that provides the basic food that people don't always have the way that we have had here at this hotel over the last couple days. And community gardens, where the Ys had community gardens that allowed people to grow their own food when they didn't have a place in the where they lived to be able to do that. And talk about healthy living. We saw hospitals in Ys. We saw a Y in a hospital. We saw a Y running the activity program in a personal care home to give people there a higher quality of life and give them this chance to experience things that they just wouldn't in a personal care home setting. We saw fantastic volunteers that were part of, we got to be part of the Fellowship of Honor ceremony in Ottawa, and I also had the great honor of emceeing a Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal ceremony where we recognized some great volunteers. We saw fabulous, amazing Strong Kids campaigns, Pour les Enfants, and Heritage Club campaigns. We had great discussions about international work, and one quote from a young leader stood out for me a lot when they said that in some countries, peace means an absence of war, which is a big contrast to the way we look at peace in this country, and just reminded us of our international connections and how lucky we are to live in Canada. We saw people with disabilities working for the Y, all ages, and taking such great pride in their work. So if you look at all of that and you look at the municipal partnerships we saw, how WISE were coming together with other partners to do work, and we saw WISE combining with rinks and with libraries, and we had the chance to do a spin class with some Y staff members, and we had the chance to bounce in the lobby of a Y in kangaroo boots, which was very, very cool. It was quite a spectacle, I'm sure, but it was really a lot of fun. Combine all of those things, and then if you ask, as some Ys, a couple of Ys have done, what really matters, or why not, I think we know that we can come to one conclusion, and that's that the Y is contributing in a huge way to the Canada we want. Donc, grand merci à vous tous pour vos accueils chaleureux dans vos Y. So thanks so much to all of you who welcomed us, and also thanks for your engagement this year, to everyone who helped with the task forces and the committees that really are helping us to move the yardstick forward this year in a big way. I really especially want to thank the young leaders for their work this year. We saw a number of young leaders when Scott and I were out visiting the Ys, and it was super to see them in their places of work and what they do in their day jobs. And it was great to connect with them again Wednesday night and again when we had dinner with them last night. So could the young leaders just stand so that everybody can see who you are? And could we all recognize the young leaders? Thank you so much. You're such a great addition to our AGM. I also want to thank my fantastic colleagues from the National Board. You see their names here on the screen, and if all the National Board members could stand so that we could recognize you as well. I should mention that Colin Potts wasn't able to join us. He's the only National Board member who wasn't able to be here today. He had some cataract surgery that was scheduled, and you know, you don't mess with getting surgery done when you need to have it done. So he passed on his regrets that he couldn't be here, and asked me to say his regards to everybody. Maintenant, j'aimerais vous présenter nos invités spéciaux. We have some special guests with us tonight, so I'm going to ask them to stand, but please hold your applause till they're all standing, and then we can welcome them all at once. So Romulo Dantas, Executive Secretary for Youth Empowerment from the World Alliance of YMCAs. That's not holding your applause till the end. Romulo, stay standing. Restez debout. Merci. Patricia Pelton, who is our representative on the World Alliance of YMCA's Executive Committee. Mike Bunn, who's the chair of the National Nominating Committee from the YMCA of Simcoe Muskoka. Lynn Kent, the national chair of YWCA Canada. Elle Lennox, a Fellowship of Honor recipient from the YMCA of Calgary. Paulette Senior, who's the national CEO of YWCA Canada. And Alvin Wright, the recreational director from Gitlak's Amex Village Government in the Niska Nation and president of the YMCA of New Ianche. Welcome to all of you. Finalement, un gros merci à vous tous. We did an incredible amount of great Y work this year, and it was such a pleasure to be involved in it and to see it in action. So now it's my pleasure to hand the podium on to Scott Haldane, who I did not fight with, and who has been fabulous being his volunteer partner this year. Scott.
Merci Marilyn, and thank you Marilyn. Bienvenue à les présidents et présidentes des conseils d'administration du YMCA, les PDG du YMCA, les jeunes leaders, nos bénévoles et nos membres de personnel, tous et toutes les leaders du YMCA. So welcome to board CEOs, board chairs, CEOs, young leaders, volunteer staff, all leaders of the YMCA in Canada. As Craig mentioned, the organizing theme for this year's AGM is Giving Voice, Donner la Voix. And we indeed, Marilyn and I, witnessed this idea of giving voice right across the country. So many different ways. We saw young leaders and young people giving the chance to express themselves and to lead their YMCAs. We saw frontline staff who told us about what it's like to represent the Y in the real place where the work happens, delivering programs and services to members and participants and communities. And we heard members and participants telling their own Y story, telling us what the Y means to them, actually expressing the cause in their own language. Donner la voix est une grande partie de Plan Y. So a big part of what we're trying to accomplish with Plan Y is in fact this idea of giving voice. And I was thinking about the theme and thinking about having all of you here. Imagine the power of this group is incredible. This is the leadership of the Canadian YMCA, probably the charity that has the biggest impact on the most number of people in our country. 2.24 million Canadians last year involved in the YMCA, and you are the leaders of this great organization. So I was thinking about leadership, and I was thinking about giving voice and putting them together and realizing that increasingly giving voice, in fact, is becoming a key function of leadership, especially in the charitable sector when we're all about helping people reach their full potential. And part of that way is allowing them to say what's important to them. In contrast to the traditional image of the leader with a vision and all the answers, in fact, in this world of uncertainty and in a world where, in fact, established solutions or traditional solutions just don't seem to be working so well anymore, the leader, the adaptive leader in this context, actually leads with a question and doesn't have all the answers. In fact, gives voice to people who will have answers that are not the same old answers that we've seen in the past. So giving voice is not just a theme for the conference, it's in fact a challenge for all of us as we lead in these somewhat uncertain times. And it's particularly important for the YMCA in an ever-accelerating change context with growing complexity in our YMCAs, in our communities, in our country, and indeed around the world. Marilyn et moi, on a dépensé 12 semaines, comme elle a dit, sur la route entre août 2012 et mai 2013. Et on a visité 46 de 51 associations par tout le pays. And I think I've got, you've seen one of these pictures already. We did have to use all modes of transport, and this is in Simcoe, Muskoka, and we realized that this was a good way to get around. But I also realized on the route that sometimes I had to point out the direction because Marilyn is a little bit directionally challenged at times. So I had to make sure we had the GPS. I didn't always succeed in that, but so we attended board meetings, we attended staff meetings, we had tours of YMCAs, all kinds of programs, some that even in my 38-year career I'd never actually seen before. We were in community meetings with community leaders, mayors of communities, and so on. We spoke at Rotary clubs. We attended media events. We did talk shows on radio. We interviewed for print media. We were on television a few times. We attended family dinners. It was just an extraordinary experience, and you were so generous in your hospitality for us as we came to your communities. We met literally hundreds of YMCA enthusiasts, people who just love the Y. What a privilege to do this as a job for me and as a volunteer opportunity for Marilyn. You know, in a way, we were searching for the YMCA cause. We're going to be doing a lot of work this year on the cause strategy, and we were kind of trying to find out what the cause was out there. One of the things that I noted was the incredible commitment of our YMCA volunteers and staff. Every one of them, in their own words, described an extraordinary alignment between their own personal beliefs and values and what the organization stands for. It's a really special connection when people can actually say, I either work or volunteer at an organization that actually stands for what I believe in. This is, in fact, what we talk about when we talk about cause. If our people, all of you, but our people across the country get our cause, they live our cause. You know, and by the way, this is no small group. Nearly 50,000 YMCA staff and volunteers last year involved in our organization. Imagine the power of unleashing the voice and passion of 50,000 enthusiasts, and through them, 2.24 million Canadians, and hopefully many more, delighted beneficiaries of the YMCA. Our job as leaders is to focus and empower this force. It's to help them articulate and amplify the cause that's already in their hands, in their hearts, in their heads, and in their souls. So much evidence is out there already that this is well underway. People are talking about what they believe in when they talk about where they work or where they volunteer. I think that Plan Y is all about capturing that, encouraging it, unleashing it, and trying to make sure that we enable those voices to be heard. Another observation from our travels, une autre observation de notre voyage, YMCAs all over the country are taking the collective initiatives that we've identified under Plan Y, and they're adapting it and making sense of it in their own context. So some examples from our strategic direction: when we think about strengthening our impact, we saw lots of evidence of YMCAs asking different kinds of questions. In addition to understanding how people are feeling about the services and programs they're participating in, we're also asking, how is it changing your lives? And we're seeing people learning how to capture that impact and those outcomes at the program level and then sharing that with other YMCAs. In terms of extending our reach, we saw some extraordinary examples of partnerships with hospitals where people in a seamless context are able to pursue the recapturing of their health in very important ways. We saw more than one YMCA that have actually created a focus on Aboriginal people and are reaching out to Aboriginal people in the urban context, have found a way to, in fact, establish and sustain an Aboriginal department within their YMCAs. Very important and very impressive. When we look at increasing our capacity, YMCAs across the country are sharing services, sharing human resources, and sharing leadership at a scale and a scope that we've never seen before. And we're building our brand. YMCAs have used the collective brand strategy, the foundation that we've developed together, but they're using it to actually hand over, in a way, the brand of the YMCA, the cause of the YMCA, to the people that they're serving, and allowing them to express their version of the brand in their own terms by asking questions like, why not, and my why is. In conclusion, I'm very excited about the program that we've got here for the next evening and day. We have a tighter agenda, but the same great content. In fact, we're really confident that the content of this AGM is going to be terrific. We have some important decisions to make to continue to realize the promise of our collective vision. And we have some great guest speakers. Tonight, Marnie Spears will give voice to the Canadian donor. Tomorrow, Romulo Dantas will give voice to the youth of the world. Tomorrow afternoon, Sean Atleo, the National Chief, will give voice to our First Nations, particularly First Nation children and youth. And we're going to give voice, it'll be up to you to decide, but we're going to give voice permanently to our young leaders in the Federation governance. That was a cue. Encore, merci pour votre leadership dans la YMCA, votre engagement dans la YMCA, dans vos communautés, et aussi dans la YMCA de Canada. I'd like to thank all of you for your leadership in your YMCAs, in your communities, and in Canada's YMCA. Have a great annual general meeting.